because he's fixed in unhesitatingly doing devotional service, unbroken. As it said, ahoitiki apatiyata, unmotivated, unmotivated, no motivation behind it that I'm doing devotional service for some reward, and uninterrupted. So that was Narada Muni's attitude towards serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Personality of Godhead's devotees. He was giving mercy around the world. Sometimes he ran into people who were non-devotees, who were doing things that were atrocious. Megari the hunter was one of them. Yet Narada Muni helped him, came down to the level that he was at, questioned him, and gave him advice that caused him to stop half killing animals and taking them through pain, and then before they left their bodies, and got him to change totally the profession, which was a very cruel profession, and now become a devotee of the Lord. So Narada Muni was traveling everywhere because he was serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, enthusing both devotees in the transcendental world and in the material world, those who were pure devotees doing work in the material world as he himself was, and also those of us who, by the grace, causeless mercy of the Lord, have turned our attention to devotional service, enthusing us, helping us. He himself is fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. The secret here is when we stay with devotional service, protection comes and happiness also comes. Sometimes the body says, well, in the material world, we go through so many problems. Yeah, that's there. But sometimes the problems which are supposed to be not taken so seriously are taken seriously by us because we have some ways to go to understand what devotion service really means. And I'm saying that for my own purification too, very much for my own purification. The process of devotional service is blissful. Every time you read anywhere in the Shastra, it will tell you. Why? Because devotional service wakes up the soul. And the nature of the soul, one of the three qualities of the soul, is ananda, bliss. Therefore, in devotional service, when one performs, they should be happy. So what stops sometimes some devotees from becoming happy? We will deal with that particular subject a little later. We're going to go straight to the purport so that I don't get too off the focus of this particular text. The Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, in the material world, there are three divisions. Urdhvaloka, topmost planets, we call the heavenly planets. Madhyaloka, midway planets, like the earthly planets that we're on, or the planetary systems, as it said in the Shastra. And Adholoka, the downward planets or the hellish planets. Of course, as further down one goes in the universe, then the more the intense the punishment are that are delivered to those who are there. Now, then Srila Prabhupada says, back up on the heavenly planets, above Brahmaloka, the topmost heavenly planet, then we come to the material coverings of the universes. And the material coverings also have earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And each one, it says in the Shastra, is 10 times thicker than the others. So in that order, there's a covering of each material universe. But when you break through all the material universes, past the Viraja River, then there's a spiritual sky. Spiritual sky is unlimited in expansion, and it contains unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets and inhabited by God himself, which is Lord Narayan, along with his associates, and all of them are eternally liberated living entities. Srila Prabhupada, so you may have heard this, Srila Prabhupada is expert in always coming back to the point, the basic things. So for us, we've heard it over and over. So now it's basic to us. 3 divisions of material nature. And then this passed it to the self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets. The Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord, illuminating all of them. Now, the material universes, the material universes, they have these planets, and for each universe, there's one sun. And the sun is a reflection. The sun is a reflection of the earthly race, I mean the bodily race, I say, the bodily race of Krishna, the Brahmajyoti. The suns in the material universes, those are reflection. But the Brahmajyoti, the reflection from Krishna, the effulgence from Krishna himself, that is what illuminates the Vaikuntha planets. Srila Prabhupada explains that the Sri Narada Muni could enter all of these planets, material, spiritual, without restriction. As much as the Almighty Lord himself is free to move personally in any part of his creation. This has been made possible by Narada Muni because of Narada Muni's function. Because he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, material and spiritual, the Lord has allowed him the ability to move in all spheres, be it material, be it any of the 3 levels of material, or be it spiritual. So, Srila Prabhupada also mentions that in the material world, the living beings are influenced by goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now, the Muni is transcendental to all of these material modes. Now, the hidden aspect or explanation of this is when one is in the material modes, we cannot enter into the spiritual world. So unless we transcend the material modes or make a good effort to do that so that we can earn the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through Guru, unless that happens, there's no going back home. So one has to take this process, even though right now many of us are not in Raga, we are invited back to, we're doing devotional service, but by instruction, still, when somebody instructs and they are going to be pleased with you, they will be pleased with you only on one condition: if you obey the instructions. That's simple. If you obey the instructions. So we are under devotional service by instruction. You do it like this, you do it like this, you don't do this, and so on. And if you follow through that and help each other to follow through properly, to obey it, then Krishna cranks up the sweetness of devotional service. This is where it comes from. Krishna has the ability, Krishna holds the key to our sweetness in devotional service. Guru gives instruction. When we satisfy Guru, Krishna is pleased. By the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. But Srila Prabhupada also has translated the same thing in other parts of his purports, of his explanation, that when Guru is pleased, then Krishna is pleased. In fact, it will move to the point where devotees have to have the understanding that Krishna consciousness very much connects to Guru consciousness. So if you satisfy Guru, Krishna will be satisfied. After all, Guru is representative of Krishna. Mm. And so we are here in this material world with a wonderful chance to go back because we have been given the means by which we go back. And if we practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, as I said, practice makes perfect. So sometimes we hear pure devotional service, you go, well, I don't know about me, pure devotional service, but we're going to talk about some points that lead us to purity, can get us as close to purity as possible. The first is offenses. Watch for offenses. Mm. And then the second is what the mind puts us in. Let's talk about the mind first. So the mind's function is to accept and reject sankalpa, vikalpa. This is how it's explained. Mm. Accept things, reject other things. It's not because that things that are good for us and bad things are rejected, good things are taken. That's the function of the intelligence. The mind simply takes things for will that satisfy the senses. The mind is connected to the senses. So the mind accepts things for satisfying the senses, rejects things the senses don't want it. But is it good for our devotion? That's the job of intelligence. Intelligence says, but if you do this, this is going to happen to you. If you do that, that's going to happen to you. Therefore, one of the things that's good for devotees to do is to reflect on how their own spiritual life is going. That is an individual thing. The reflection as we're going on in our devotee life is extremely important. What have I done this week? What have I done this day or the previous day? Take stock of it. You can do daily, you can do weekly, you can do monthly, and you can do yearly assessments. Now, depending on what you're comfortable with, you can look at your daily assessment. I do that rather critically of my own self. Why was this could have been done this way, that could have been done that way. The other point is our own bhakti, the devotional keeper, can be enthused the more helpful we are to other devotees. Sometimes we're busy minding our own business. Well, look at Narada Muni. How much of his own business does he mind? Hardly any. He is intoxicated in calling the name of the Lord, but he travels to help other people's business, purify other people's business. That's what he does. And so what we can take from that is if we help others, and Nectar of Instruction has told us how to, we'll get to that. If we help others become more enthused in Krishna consciousness, Krishna then becomes pleased with us. Guru definitely will be pleased with us. So one of the ways in which we can, in fact, get more excited and enthusiastic in devotional service is how much help we give to others. And we're not talking about devotees only, even non-devotees. Interestingly enough, yesterday was Thanksgiving, and in the Harrisburg temple, the youth decided to cook and offer in prasadam and give a prasadam like the whole Food for Life, connected to that. Food for Life is obviously an extended one, but this one was done especially for Thanksgiving. And they came up with the idea. Wasn't even the president. They came up with the idea. And then they were allowed to cook. 4 hours they spent in the kitchen of the temple. And then they took the preps to 2 places where people who are homeless meet. There's a place where the men, homeless men, is one place, and the homeless women is another place. They went to those 2 places and gave the prasad to them. And the feedback we got from them, they took pictures and all of this interesting. So, there's a WhatsApp site for Harrisburg. But so they posted the pictures there when they were cooking and finished all of that. And they were going exactly according to wearing, caps to make sure that the hair doesn't get in the food. And all of that, they took, the trouble to do it perfectly. And then, of course, they went out and then they distributed it to them. And the feedback was that those who were managing in the different shelters were extremely happy with, especially when they saw how young they were, and then they came with this. So, let's Prashadam. They have given the secret weapon to the homeless. Everybody that eats it has an opportunity now, and we leave that up to the hands of Krishna, the opportunity to get into devotion at some point. Anyone who is given Prashadam, that person is fortunate in that their connection with Krishna consciousness has started. Prashadam, in the manner of speaking, sows the seed to begin one's devotion. We who chant and hear and take Prashadam, we are in the process itself, have an opportunity to go back to Godhead this lifetime if we take it seriously. Those who are given Prashadam, they get an opportunity to start their devotion. But who did it? The devotee that gave the Prashadam. Sometimes a book would work when you give to people, but that's people who want to read. Who doesn't like to eat though? That's everybody. That's everybody. Therefore, Prashadam is a very powerful weapon. And it was a very nice idea that the youth came up with to do that yesterday for the homeless people. So while Narada Muni is showing us how important devotion is, and so much so that he's telling Vyasadeva, you have to write more about the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I myself, my life, he explains it, connecting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead through those sages that he was associated, and through the Prashadam, the Mahaprashadam that he took. Look what happened to him. So that's where we have our lessons to learn. Srila Prabhupada says, Narada Muni travels everywhere, unrestrictedly. So he preaches everywhere, and he saves people's consciousness everywhere. So we as devotees, this is how Prabhupada entered, all the great authorities in the devotional service of our Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni, in the order of Narada Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly, without a doubt, qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. The great authorities in devotional service follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni, in the order of Narada Bhakti Sutra. So then my own curiosity piqued, all right, Narada Bhakti Sutra. What's Narada Bhakti Sutra? All right, so then I looked at Narada Bhakti Sutra. Fortunately, database has it. So in Narada Bhakti Sutra, chapter 1, it's entitled The Value of Devotion. The sutras are like texts. So the first text was just about Narada Muni saying, now therefore, I'll try to explain the process of devotion service to you. So now, the second one, devotional service manifests as the most elevated pure love for God. And this is backed up in Bhagavad Gita, it's backed up in Srimad Bhagavatam. One can open up the love which we've forgotten, being in the material world and covered up with so many things. The heart's not so pure. It can open up by pure devotional service. Devotional service manifests as the most elevated pure love for God. This is how Narada Muni puts it. And the next sutra says that the pure love for God is eternal. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport for sutra number 3, that when a person attains to the perfectional state of love of Godhead, he becomes liberated even in his present body and realizes his constitutional position of immortality. So now the Muni is saying devotional service manifests as the most elevated pure love of God. pure love for God. Therefore, devotional service should never be quit. Not quit it by anybody. You leave it, you basically don't have a life. You do not have a life. And I had experience of it a little bit, not just a few months back. I had to undergo a surgical procedure. I just kind of kept it low key, so I didn't talk much about it. But after that, there was physical therapy, and I did not really want to stop serving. But my family was telling me, well, you know, this is, you have surgery, you have to slow down. No, I did not want to slow down. And so they tried very hard to stop me from doing some of the services that I was doing originally. And that almost got me depressed. Because what is life without devotion service? I don't know. It gets to a point where you realize the happiness only comes from devotion service, because everything else that the material life throws at us, after a while of doing devotion service, you begin to see that it's actually quite empty. Empty in the fact that there's no real fulfillment. You do what's necessary. Material life is necessary. And then unnecessary things. You stay away from unnecessary things. The things that you need to keep the body going, you do that. But that's as far as material life goes, though. We spend right now, people who are working a good 8 hours, sometimes if you add driving and to and from work, maybe another hour to it, or half hour, depending how close you are to your job. And it's the daytime too. It takes that part of the day. You say, oh, but I wish that I had the time to spend so much of it on devotional service. But right now I have to go to work. Yes, well, there's two things. One, you can take part of what you get from work, which is your paycheck, and a portion of it, give to the temple or give to projects of your choice. That way you spiritualize your work. That's there also. The other part of it is many people do not go to work during the Brahma Muhurta time. So then if you go to sleep early enough, so you have enough rest, then you can wake up during the Brahma Muhurta time and have you and the Lord and your spiritual master time. And for that period of time, the Brahma Muhurta, that's actually quality time, the best time of the day. To chant the holy name of the Lord, to read, to do something spiritual. And of course, the biggest is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, because in the sense that that's what takes us back to the spiritual world. So it's always a good idea during the Brahma Muhurta time to chant. If you live in a temple, so much the better. You can go to Mangalatik and be with devotees, devotee association, welcome the Lord in the morning and chant, Sri Guru Astaka. So all of those things are there, set up by Sri Prabhupada as our instructional way of growing in Krishna consciousness. We have to take advantage of it. Now, the one thing that sometimes makes us a little dry in Krishna consciousness is offenses. Now, I know in Kali Yuga now, we've been told, all right, so if you do not say something, if you just think something, so all kinds of thoughts are in the air. If you think something that's negative, it doesn't affect your devotional account. It's not counted against you. In Satya Yuga, in that time it is. Whatever you think of, if it's negative, it's counted against you. In Satya Yuga it is. Kali Yuga, no. But don't we think of things before we speak? So even though that break is there, that one thinks negatively, it doesn't go against them. We have to still watch our thoughts. Because as my spiritual master explained to us, some of his disciples in the books that he wrote and some of the lectures, he said, watch your thoughts. Because it's what you think of that you wind up saying. Watch your thoughts, because they can become your words. And from your words, you act a certain way. So watch your words, they can become your actions. And repeated actions can become a habit. So watch thoughts, even though Kali Yuga says, all right, you're thinking something positive, it goes in your favor. You think something negative, but as long as you're just thinking about that, it doesn't go against you. But since our thoughts, especially if it's negative, can become our words, and if the words come out negative this time against the devotee, we've offended that person. And as long as we're offensive, we will not be enthused in Krishna consciousness. This is where the break is. This is where the difficulty is for so many devotees. We are our cause of our own lack of enthusiasm. And sometimes it's hard for us because we kind of justify it that we're thinking this way and this person is truly that bad. Well, the person is truly that bad. The person is sick. Devotionally, they're sick. So if you think that somebody is bad, you help them. There are different ways to help them to be motivated and also get away from the things to the negative. But you don't offend that person. And that goes against us. That pollutes our own mentality. So pure devotional service can be slowly approached, gradually and steadily approached, the more we get offenses out of the way. So we have to watch how we deal with devotees. Devotees are described like a double-edged sword. Devotees can help us cut through Maya and move forward. Non-devotees don't do that. Non-devotees are steeped in Maya themselves and they think they're enjoying, even though they're steeped in Maya. Now, that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, if we offend devotees, we can get injured, spiritually injured. So devotees are double-edged sword in that way. They can help us to move forward. And if we're not careful in dealing with them and we offend them, then we are injured spiritually. We wound ourselves spiritually. So in that way, devotees are important for us, but devotees are ones we have to watch out also for, that we don't offend, because then aparad, sunyarada, that's life without Radharani. And so when we are careful in dealing with devotees and careful to stop ourselves, once the mind starts doing things or thinking things negative, you immediately start counteracting it. Krishna is in control. This person is a special person. Every devotee is a special person compared to non-devotees. Therefore, I shouldn't go too far with this. Get away from it as possible. Sometimes the easier thing is to just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, to stop the flow of negativity through our minds. That is one thing that tends to, slow down our growth and movement towards pure love of Krishna, the process of devotional service, as Narada Muni is describing. Now, in Sutra number 4, Narada Bhakti Sutra, Narada says, upon achieving the stage of transcendental devotional service in pure love of God, this is what happens. A person becomes perfect, immortal, and peaceful. So peace comes that way. When we take our devotional service seriously, purify the process. As we talked about, the big thing is taking our chanting seriously and also preventing or avoiding offenses. This is what happens to a person who is moving towards that, becoming more and more perfect. They're becoming immortal. Immortal in what sense? Well, we have the physical body. In the physical body, we're going to leave it. The soul is going to leave it at some point. But then the devotee that thinks that way, that serves purely, has got to the point where death is not a big deal to them at all. Death is seen as Krishna coming to take me back home. And that is, in fact, the best definition for a devotee who takes the process seriously. So in that sense, they are thinking more about the soul, and the soul doesn't die. Therefore, it's a transition that the soul is going to go through. Yes, we've been born this particular lifetime, but we're not going to be born again. And if we're not going to be born again after death, then that means we are in an immortal situation. Immortal means born but never dying. And that generates the peace that we need. So Narada Muni says that upon achieving a stage of transcendental devotion service and pure love of God, a person becomes perfect, immortal, and peaceful. What is the characteristics of a person who is like that? That's in Sutra number 5. A person engaged in pure devotional service neither desires anything for sense gratification, nor laments for any loss, nor hates anything, nor enjoys anything on his own personal account, nor becomes enthusiastic in material activity. So Narada is describing that a person who is engaged in such pure devotional service doesn't want anything for themselves, not for satisfying their senses. When they lose something, it's the Lord's mercy. They don't hate anything because it's part of the material world. Some things are this way, some things are that way. Yin Yang is here. It's not our home anyway. So a person thinks, I'll be out of here, and at home, my soul is in bliss the whole time. So this is just a place that's temporary, and let me take the process seriously so I can get out. So yeah, so it doesn't mean you don't see things that are good and things that are bad. You can see that, but they don't connect emotionally to it. They don't enjoy things on their own personal account. They give service to other people. And sometimes it's just a question of trying it. The more you give out, the happier you yourself become. And of course, not to mention the fact that your relationship with the devotees become very wonderful too. Because the more you serve them, the person, every time they see you, they feel good about you. They want to be around you. They want to associate with you. It gets to a point where even the trust goes up. And then the person may even reveal some things about themselves to you because the trust level has gone up. It all starts with giving of yourself to others. So we all should try. By the end of the week, when we take stock of what we've done, there should be activities in it that we can point to that I did this for this particular individual. It doesn't mean that you have to talk about it. This is just your own reflection. I was able to do this for this particular individual. And it's very exciting to think that way because in the following week, you think, what else can I do? How do you know what to do for others? It's very simple. In your conversations with them, listen to what they say. Because in what they say will be the things, that's where the needs are. The person won't tell you that they want this particular thing they want from you. No, they're just expressing what's going on in their lives. But through that, if you make a note of it, they said this, they said that, they said that. Which of these can I help this particular devotee with? Make a note of it, and without telling them anything, you go on and you give the help. Surprise them with gifts. But the gifts based on what you know you've heard from their conversation. So we are very, very fortunate that we have this process. It's just a question of applying it. In Sutra number 7, Narada Muni says, there is no question of lust in the execution of pure devotional service, because in it, all material activities are renounced. So he's telling us there is no lust. When you're executing pure devotional service, lust has no room at all, because pure devotional service is spiritual, and lust comes from the material. So this is how he explains it. Now, Srila Prabhupada in the purport on this particular one, he says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, also of Chaitanya Charitamrita, therefore said, Kama, Prema, Donkara Vibhina Lakshana, Laha Ara Prema Yaiche Swarup Vilakshana. As there's a difference between iron and gold, so there's a difference between material lust and Krishna's loving affairs with the gopis. So here is lust and love compared. We're skipping a few points here, I know, but it's a lot, obviously. So there's a difference between iron and gold. Obviously, in quality, gold is way, 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 way better than iron, but they're both metals. So there's a difference between material lust and the loving affairs of Krishna. So, Shri says, although such loving affairs sometimes may resemble material lust, especially the dealings with the gopis, the difference is as follows. Atmendriya priti bancha tare bale karma, Krishnendriya priti ischa tare prema nama. In the translation, this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila, chapter 4, text 165. The desire to satisfy one's own senses is called lust, while the desire to satisfy the senses of Krishna is called prema, love of God. So our activities would be perfect if our mentality, now we don't do things perfectly because we don't have perfect senses anyway ourselves right now with these bodily senses that we have. But the intention should be, we want to satisfy Guru, we want to satisfy the devotees. And in doing that, so we do things in quality, then in good quality, then of course Krishna will be satisfied, because when Guru is satisfied and Krishna is satisfied. So it's not that difficult. It's just a question of the mentality when we tackle devotional service. We should be so determined to serve other devotees that their service to them should mean more to us than taking care of our own selves. We're not saying we shouldn't take care of our own selves. We should, but when it comes to helping others, the mood behind it should be taken such that there's even priority. You put the priority of serving others before serving yourself. This is how you become selfless. This is how you give to others. Selflessness is based on putting other people's the help that you can give to other people as priority compared to your own. If you put your own first and say, well, when I'm done, then I'm doing this, and maybe I'll help this other person. And if there's time, then I'll help this other person. That is selfishness. But with the same time, you say, okay, I know this person needs this. Let me get it and do it for them. And then do my own, what I need later. That is selflessness. And this is the attitude that the devotee should have. Finally, because I want to open up for more questions. Now, in the Nada Bhakti Sutra, we hear the word surrender. Krishna says, and Sri Prabhupada repeats it so many times. He says, you rascal, the meaning us, surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're trying so many other things. There are 6 symptoms of surrender. One should perform devotional service, those actions that are favorable only. One should perform only those actions favorable for devotional service to Krishna. Number 2, one should give up everything unfavorable for discharging devotional service. This is the instructions of Rupa Goswami. Accept all things favorable to devotional service. That's number 1. Reject those things that are unfavorable to devotional service. Number 2. Number 3, one should firmly believe that Krishna will protect one in all circumstances, and that no one is a better protector than Krishna. We should be very convinced about that. Because after all, Krishna owns everything. Krishna is the greatest controller, the supreme controller. So why wouldn't he be the best protector? So 1, perform activities favorable to devotional service. 2, reject activities unfavorable. And 3, firmly believe that Krishna will protect in all circumstances. Number 4, one should have the conviction that Krishna is one's maintainer, and one should not take shelter of any demigod for maintenance. One should believe, this is a devotee mentality, Krishna is my maintainer. In other words, I should do things favorable devotional service, reject things unfavorable to devotional service, believe that Krishna is my protector, and believe that Krishna is going to maintain me. So that's 4. Number 5, one should always remember that one's activities and desires are not independent. In other words, the devotee should feel completely dependent on Krishna. And he should act and think as Krishna wants, like Krishna desires. So we are to do things favorable to devotional service, reject things that are not favorable. Krishna is a protector, Krishna is our maintainer, and we should act with the understanding that we are completely dependent on Krishna. When a devotee thinks that way, then everything that it does will be according to Krishna's plan. We should feel completely dependent on Krishna. And the 6th item for surrender, one should think himself always the poorest of the poor and feel totally dependent on the mercy of Krishna, on the mercy of Krishna. So the thing is, I am nothing without you, dear Lord. By your mercy, I can go on with life. Therefore, I am totally dependent on you. And this is everywhere. When you're doing things, even on the job, before you start working, dear Lord, everything that happens today, let it be everywhere. Let it be based on your mercy. So when a devotee feels totally dependent on the mercy of Krishna, guess what goes out the door? The false ego. You don't have to worry about false ego at all. Because false ego is connected to lust, it's connected to anger, it's connected to greed, it's connected to pride, it's connected to illusion, and it's also connected to envy. But when one depends on the mercy and feels in their hearts that without Krishna, I can't do anything. Therefore, everything I do, whatever comes to my mind, let it be based on Krishna's sanction. That way, one is totally thinking and working, even while in the material world doing things like everybody else is doing, that's a non-devotee, still, their mentality is, I'm doing this all depending on the mercy of Krishna. So the 6 items of surrender are doing the things that are favorable for devotional service, 2, giving up the things that are unfavorable, 3, for unfavorable devotion, discharging devotional service, 3, believe that Krishna will protect us, and no one is a better protector than Krishna. 4, to be convinced that Krishna is our maintainer. 5, that we should completely feel completely dependent on Krishna and do as Krishna desires. And 6, one should feel themselves the poorest of the poor and feel totally dependent on the mercy of Krishna. Now, the Muni exemplifies all of these, and that's why Krishna is now using him as he's explaining to Vyasadeva that he's a transcendental spaceman. By the grace of Almighty Vishnu, he can travel everywhere without restriction. Why? Because he's doing devotional service according to Krishna's instructions. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for a very detailed, elaborate class on these pastimes of Narada Muni. Now, I found it interesting how I was talking to, I guess, a devotee who had grown up in India. And he said in India, sometimes the perception of Narada Muni is a little bit different. As you were explaining, in the glorification of him from the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that he's a very, I guess, very strict and very spiritual example. He's a pure devotee. that they sometimes perceive him to be kind of this like joker, kind of almost like a comedian type of individual, like a person that's not, to be taken so seriously. And I found that so strange that kind of like he's there to instigate problems and then he kind of jumps away. That's one of the things that they were saying. But then, as we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's quite a difference between that
Perception.
Perception. Yeah.
Mm.
With, so thank you for bringing that out.
It makes me wonder why they think that way. Is it just because I've seen some Indian movies and sometimes Narada Muni comes in, Narayana, Narayana. They just take everything lightly, I don't know whether that's what's over the years made them develop that kind of thinking that Narada Muni is not to be taken so seriously. Anyway, I wouldn't know, but maybe somebody that's lived in India can throw in it into, but anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to kind of bring that out that his teachings are extremely instructional to us, and his example is something to be taken very seriously.
Absolutely.
Not to be taken.
Absolutely. Hopefully, for the Buddhists, they would know by now, because every time Narada Muni's name comes up, it's a serious matter. Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, so many people, staunch devotees of the Lord became his disciples. And that goes to, to show the quality of Narada Muni himself. But it's a good point you brought up.
We have any questions, comments, thoughts for Pariksit, Prabhu?
The last point you brought up, Drona, when you were talking about this, that he instigates sometimes. That's true. And that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam also, where, with like Kamsa, for example, and he'll instigate, but not to be taken lightly, just to move along the pastime to make things happen. Sometimes it looks like he's doing something even against Krishna, but absolutely not. He's always making sure the pastime goes on. But I could see how that could be, misconceived.
Good point. Yeah, good point you brought up. Yes, in the case of Kansa, yes, he speeded up the Krishna's pastime of he himself coming as the eighth son more quickly. Yes, he did do that. But all these things are done because it's all part of Krishna's plan, though. Now, the Muni, even when he's doing that, dealing with the demons, because you always have to deal craftily with demons. They're not about anything good. So based on what Krishna wants, time factor, all of that is figured out by the way Krishna finally wants the pastime to unfold. And Narada Muni is always consistent in terms of doing things, helping. So even if it means he comes off that way as trying to instigate, it's still, for him, part of the devotion service, because it's ultimately Krishna's plan anyway. Hare Krishna. But good point to bring up. Any others? The one thing that I know I've made notes for this, but Nada Bhakti Sutra, the one point of it that, and I know I kept repeating, because it struck me a lot, the 6, points about surrender. We take those seriously, going through. If it's devotional service, it's favorable, we do it. If unfavorable, we reject it. Sometimes some things may happen. And again, it would take the association with other devotees. Sometimes you go to a little debate. Is this the best thing to do? Is this, sometimes, check in with other devotees. Because sometimes our mind will say, oh, this is good, that's not good, this is good, that's not good. But when you check in with devotees, you may get other ideas too. So in association, bring up things that we need to talk about. Or you're thinking about doing a certain way. But Thakur, it said in the Shastra, he was checking in with Jagannath Das Babaji. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a pure devotee. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is an attorney, so many things, Seventh Goswami, but he checked in with Jagannath Das Babaji every time. So when we check in with devotees too, then we would know actions favorable, actions unfavorable sometimes, and listening to the Shastra also and asking questions will help clarify things. But the belief is important. Surrender that Krishna will protect in all circumstances. Krishna will maintain. And I work only by the mercy of Krishna. Like that. That is surrender. Hare Krishna.
Very good point. I see Bhakta Sean on the call. I know he recently read the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Discovered it, and I remember him walking around the temple. I'm saying, "Oh, this is a great book. This is amazing."
Yeah, so many points in there.
Yes, can I make just a comment about that?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. This is so nice. What I'm really getting in this class is just the humility, like as devotees, how we have to strengthen this humility, which is so unnatural for me, at least, to have this humility in my life, but something I'm really striving for, having troubles getting to. But this the Narada Sutras, during the 24-hour kirtan, I had walked past the books in the temple so many times, and I just happened to see it, and I picked it up and I started reading it, and I just couldn't put it down. It's so poignant, like, and Srila Prabhupada actually, wrote some of the purports, and it's just such an amazing gem of like devotional instruction in such a pointed way. I'm like reading it over and over, getting so much out of it. So if devotees haven't, it seems like, I never heard anyone really talk about it, but it's such a wonderful. So I just encourage any devotees to take a look at that and read it. There's some in the Philadelphia temple if anyone wants to get them. So anyways, all right, thank you.
Yeah, it talks about bhakti. It's very, very, very explanatory. I picked it up off of a database that I have here, and I got moved to it because of the last sentence that Srila Prabhupada says in the purport for this particular text, that the pure devotees go by the Narada Bhakti Sutra. And so that got immediately picked I typed it in, here it is. Oh, so much stuff is there. I started. Yeah, so I actually said, it's a lot. This is part of chapter 1. That's just part of chapter 1 that I just talked about today. Just part of it. So there's so much there that you can benefit from it. Yeah. So definitely, I second the notion that grab it and take a look at the sutras first, see what Narada says. You can understand so much about devotion from it. Hare Krishna. So any last questions or comments? Thank you, Bhakti Sean. Yeah, I'm also a fan of the Bhakti Sutra now, big fan. I want to read, Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you to all the devotees for coming to the Srimad Bhagavatam class today, and a special thanks to you, Pariksit Prabhu.
Krishna's mercy.
Very instructional class. We will continue tomorrow, again at 7:50. So hope to join us. And also tonight we do have our Bhagavad Gita happy hour starting at 5:30. Are you on for that, Pariksit Prabhu? Is this
I was invited to, but I just said I have an appointment a little bit close to Girinagi in the afternoon, so I didn't know when I'd be back in time. Yeah. So I asked for next week.
Switch to next. Because I know Friday is your day. You and Haryashra Prabhu.
Probably next Friday.
On Fridays. Okay, great. So if you all have a wonderful Krishna conscious day,
Jai.
Let's see. Jai. Shri Narada Muni ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Vanchakapatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Glory to Prabhupada.